welcome to the Coach's Office. This is a podcast about the Liberty Eagles football program and our philosophies on everything we do. Today I'm joined by co-host Brad Smith,
Hey,
Kenny Nowling,
How's it going?
Craig McMillen,
Yep.
and Macklin Parks.
Hey.
Hopefully we got our microphone situation fixed this week. Last week some of our guys couldn't hear very well. And this week everything should sound a little bit better. Thank you everybody for listening. If you could follow our YouTube channel. Kenny, what's that YouTube channel again?
Let me check real quick. Yeah, I'll get it in a second.
Kenny has to.
Forget what it is.
It's your one job, Kenny.
I know, man.
Editing is for, right?
Yeah, but we don't edit
Liberty
this.
Eagles football. I don't know how that slipped
Yeah,
my
just
mind.
Liberty-
Liberty Eagles football.
Liberty
You
Eagles
look that
football.
up, Kenny.
Yeah.
So follow our YouTube channel. Hit the like button on our videos. I really don't know what the purpose of liking those is, but that's what every YouTube thing says.
No,
So
for
I
sure.
think we should.
Like it. More likes and interactions you get, the algorithm kind of picks you up and starts
Okay.
suggesting
Yeah.
your videos to
I,
people.
I
we go.
believe,
There we
I
go.
believe you need to smash that like button.
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what they say. I couldn't come to say
All right,
that.
let's get on track.
Okay. We're going to take a break from, take a week off of talking about being uncommon and our mission of being uncommon every day. And we're going to talk about recruiting. I had an email from a parent asking about some recruiting stuff, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to really kind of address recruiting and what we do for recruiting. Expectations is depending on what level you want to play at and what that looks like. So first off, we're just going to talk about the different levels of college football. And football has different levels than, say, basketball or baseball because there's actually two Division I's. And the Midwest is ripe with different levels of football play. Some of the best Division I AA football, Division II, JUCO is right here in the Midwest. So it's a great place if your goal is as a high school football player is to play college. Midwest, there's tons of opportunities here in the Midwest. Everyone knows Division I. It's technically Division I Single A. That's your FBS. That's Football Bowl Series. That's Mizzou, Illinois, the big time teams you see on TV. Below that, in football is the only one with Division I AA. So that's the next level down. That's FCS. That's Football Championship Series is what that stands for. So SEMO, Missouri State, Western Illinois, Illinois State. One of the, I would say, I don't know the conference that like Illinois State, South Dakota State. No, I don't know that conference. Do you?
Yeah, I know Ohio Valley's like SEMO.
Yeah,
But I'm not sure.
there's the Ohio Valley. I think Missouri Valley.
State's in
Missouri Valley Conference?
Yeah, Missouri Valley's one. I think Missouri State. They're no.
Maybe I can't remember.
Lindenwood. They're
Oh, yeah,
now,
Lindenwood's
now
yeah.
in the Ohio Valley Conference.
They're
Yeah,
Division
just
I,
bumped up.
AA. But that a lot of times the national champion for that FCS comes from kind of the Midwest area. South Dakota State's predominantly very good. North Dakota State, Illinois State has been extremely good. So that's the second division of football. And then we have Division II, which Lindenwood used to be Division II, but they're not anymore. University of Central Missouri, Truman,
Northwest Missouri
Raleigh.
State, right?
Northwest Missouri State,
Powerhouse.
Washburn.
I would say the very best Division II conference in the country is right here in the Midwest. A lot of times Northwest Missouri State wins the national championship.
The MIAA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, MIAA.
They're the MIAA. Pitt State, which is where Matt Craig's going to go, I think they barely lost. They lost by 3 or something like that
to the team that won. Was it Ferris State or something like that?
I don't remember the.
Something. They lost by 3 to the champions.
But they barely lost to the team that won the national championship. So very good Division II football in this area. So then below that we have Division III, and then we have NAIA, and then junior college. So all those have different things, and we're going to go through the requirements of kind of each one of those and what players need to look for, depending on what level ability they have, and what their goals and aspirations are. I will say before we start, recruiting is one of the hardest things I deal with as a head coach, because you have to deal with kids' dreams, and sometimes, unfortunately, a dream just at the end of their high school career might not be the reality that they're in, and it can really hurt some kids. So that's a very hard thing to deal with an athlete. So let's get into this here. So if we're just looking at Division I requirements, so for Division I, Division II, there's the classes in school. They refer to them as core courses. So that's your math, your science, English, social studies. Those are considered core course classes. So your PE classes, things like that, aren't lumped into those core courses. And you can go on the NCAA. This is all pulled off of the NCAA Clearinghouse website. So these are things you can go on there, check core courses, see which ones are core courses. You can also, players can come ask me, go to their counselor, because sometimes we have to do some checking to see if something qualifies as a core course. But you have to earn 16 of those throughout your high school career. So you have to have 4 years of English. So this is Division I requirements only so far. You have to have 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of science, and then you have to have 1 year of additional English, additional math, or additional science. Social sciences are 2 years. What do you guys know what a social science class is?
That's my class.
Is that
so it's like Western Civ, U.S. history,
okay?
Government.
So
government you have to have.
Yeah. So 2 years of social science, and then any of those areas we just listed, you have to have additional courses of any of those for 4 years. And also you can add in your world language. So if you're taking Spanish class, that can go in there as well. And here's kind of the thing that really separates Division I is they start looking at what you have done before your senior year. So going into your senior year, you have to have 10 of those 16 completed and done. And 7 of those have to be in English, math, or science. So the wording is by your 7th semester, you have to have 10 of the 16 core courses complete, and your 7th semester being first semester of your senior year. So by the end of your junior year, you have to have 10 of those 16 completed and done, and 7 have to be for English, math, and science. And then within all those core course classes, you have to maintain a GPA of 2.3. And a lot of times what a student sees on their SIS or something like that is their cumulative GPA, which factors in the PE classes, the fine art classes, and none of those classes, the grade you get in those factors into the core course GPA. So you may have a cumulative GPA of a 3.0, but your core course might be 2.6, especially if a student did really bad in their core courses and then took some other classes to really boost their GPA. They just pull out those core courses and look at the GPA of those classes. So that's in order to be eligible to be a Division I athlete. Just those things right there. So let's say you don't have a core course GPA of 2.3. What? Say you're a Division I athlete. Say you still want to play Division I, and you don't have that 2.3. Well, then what happens? Well, you still have to pass those 16 core courses, but now you're looking at a core course GPA of 2.0, and that puts you basically on academic probation for the first year. You can practice. You can receive a scholarship. And then they look at your classes while you're in that first year of school. You have to pass either 8 quarter or 9 semester hours to be eligible to practice the next year. So there's a lot of requirements when it comes down to being a Division I athlete and what they're looking for. And honestly, a lot of times if they see someone without the grades, a lot of times, say Mizzou, or they might have equal talented players and they have a player with a 3.5 and a player with a 2.5, they're going to go with the 3.5 GPA. It's less work on their part to make sure that kid's maintaining the right GPA that make sure they're doing the things they're supposed to do in the classroom. So they're going to go with the kid with the higher GPA. It also shows work ethic. If you keep that high GPA, if you have two players with one with a high GPA and one not, I mean, that kind of shows them what kind of work ethic a student has.
Ryan, it seems like there's kind of a myth out there that if a D1 program really wants you, they're going to get you, whether you have good grades or not. And I wonder if there are a lot of guys out there who think that they're kind of in that conversation when the reality is they're not. And it seems to me like the grades are a really big part of the recruiting process. And I suppose if you can like take on triple teams every time, like if you're an exceptional freak of nature type of athlete, then I suppose maybe some programs could find loopholes. But for the most part, it seems like most programs feel like their hands are tied and they really need guys who can get good grades in the classroom.
Yes, that's 100% true. If you have a 1.7 core course GPA, it doesn't matter how good you are. There's nothing they can do with that. They have to move on. You're not gonna be academically eligible, and that's where one of these other levels might come into play at that point. But if you have a 1.7, Mizzou isn't taking anybody that has a 1.7. Alabama is not taking anyone with a 1.7. I don't care how good they are. It's just not feasible. You have to have at least a 2.0, and that puts you on probation having a 2.0. So academics is first and foremost the thing that needs to be the first primary concern with every athlete. We have colleges that come through and they won't even entertain anyone on our recruiting sheet that has below a 3.0 sometimes, and that depends sometimes on the university they're coming from, because there are separate. Some universities can set their own standards as well, so that might be NCAA's standard that the lowest is a 2.3, but for a university it might be a 3.0. You're not sure. You need to check the university requirements.
Ryan, would it be an exaggeration to say that when you talk to recruiters, that's the very first thing they ask?
It always is.
Yeah.
It's always they want to see GPAs, and then once they see the GPA, we look at height and weight, things like that on top of that. But it's always grades. That's what they're looking at first. I did find out something recently, though, with recruiting and academic standards and things like that. The NCAA voted, I think starting August 1st maybe, to not standardize, like the ACT is no longer. Now, a university can select to still have that minimum standardized test score, but to be academically eligible for NCAA, that's no longer a requirement anymore, which is interesting. I think they just voted on that this past January, and it goes into effect in August. So there is no ACT requirement anymore. It's just your core course GPA and taking those classes. Okay, so that's Division I. Division II, it changes slightly. And there's kind of an interesting thing with Division II also that I'll get to here in a second. With Division II, you still have those 16 core course credits, but instead of 4 years of English, you only need 3 years. Math is 2 years. Science is 2 years. You need an additional math, science, or English for 3 years. Social science for 2 years. And then addition of the above and world languages in there of 4 years. And your core course GPA needs to be a 2.2 GPA. Now, here's the difference in Division II. Is if, say, you don't meet those academic requirements for Division II, you get put on basically an academic red shirt the first year, and that's it. So like with Division I, there was certain things you still had to do to be on academic probation. So Division II, you can have that 1.7 as long as you get into the university. You can practice, you can have a scholarship that first year, but you can't play. Now they just put you on academic red shirt, which a lot of Division II schools are going to they're going to redshirt players the first year anyway. But then after that, you can play. So not meeting those requirements isn't as big of a deal as in Division II as Division I. Now, where it becomes a big deal, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit, isn't a lot of times in Division II and Division I and AA, they're splitting up scholarships. So what they'll do is they'll stack athletic money with academic money. So you're just decreasing the amount of money you can get to go to school by not having good grades. Or you're making it hard for them to bring in other good players because they have to give that particular athlete a bigger scholarship because he's not going to get any academics. So when they see that, they're going to offer you the lower scholarship or just move on to someone else. Because again, and we'll get into the numbers here in a second too, with how many high school football players there are out there. If you have a really bad GPA, they can move on to someone else. And that's just a reality of the situation. And then after Division II, we have Division III. Really, the only requirements for Division III are you get accepted to the whatever university it is, and some of those have a GPA requirement, have an ACT requirement. That just depends on the school you want to go to. And then down past Division III, you have NAIA, and then some JUCO as well.
Is it the same requirements?
Yeah,
D3.
Yes, past Division II, it's really just if you get accepted into the university is all. NAIA is the same way. So NAIA schools, I don't think I listed any NAIA schools or Division III schools in the area. MOBAP is NAIA. There's a lot of good Division III schools in Illinois. Like Illinois College is a pretty good Division III school. There's in Fulton, Missouri. I can't remember the name of that Division III school off the top of my head. Anyway, a lot of good Division III schools in Iowa, Illinois. There's a couple in Missouri, not a ton. Westminster. It's Westminster University in Fulton. They're a Division III school. NAIA is like Culver Stockton.
Yeah, William Jewell, right?
William Jewell is Division II now.
Oh, it is? They moved up?
Yep.
I know.
They moved up, kind of like Linwood has moved up over the years. When I was in college, they were NAIA, then they moved up to Division II, and then now they're Division I. So there's a lot of, I would say there's probably more NAIA schools out in like the Kansas City area maybe, but there's a lot.
What's the one that Tate went to?
There's Benedictine. Avila is a good NAIA program that's in Kansas City. So they're kind of all over. And then JUCO's kind of its own animal in and of itself. So a lot of times those athletes that may have gone to Mizzou but had that 1.7 GPA will go to a junior college. So a lot of times those junior colleges, when they come through and talk or whatever, they're wanting to look at a potential Division I athlete, but didn't have the grades for a Division I program. And JUCO out here in the Midwest is that's what JUCO kind of is out here. It's a Division I player that didn't have the grades to go to Division I school, and that's where they need to go for 2 years and get their grades up. Or play there for 2 years and then go to the draft.
Yeah, there's a few schools in Kansas that are, was it Garden City?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's
huge.
huge.
What's the Netflix show?
Yeah, Last Chance U.
Last Chance U.
Yeah, they had a couple schools from that area.
California.
Yeah, one from California too. But
Well, that I wouldn't even say that one in California. That's not even. I wouldn't even say is a big time JUCO.
right, yeah, it's usually
Because
like
their JUCO out there, I believe that was just a statewide championship for there.
Yeah,
That wasn't a countrywide.
National. No, it wasn't national.
Now when they were at the place in Mississippi, that was and like Garden City, that's a national playoff JUCO bracket there. So the JUCO here is more Division I athletes didn't have the grades. I would say the JUCOs out in like California, and this is my experience with JUCO. JUCO in California are kids that might have played Division III, NAIA, because there's not a lot of those types of schools out on the West Coast. So out there, those kids play JUCO instead of NAIA, Division III, Division II. But here in the Midwest, we have so many Division III, NAIA, Division II, that the JUCO consists of those players that just didn't have the grades to play Division I. So most of that information was straight off of NCAA Clearinghouse website. You can find that on there. Players can come to me, parents can come to me and ask questions. Just a couple things that I also pulled off of a website, and this is I'm not promoting NCSA at all here. I know a lot of players use NCSA. It's just a national recruiting service.
I was just going to ask, what is it? What is NCSA?
It's a national recruiting service. I don't push NCSA at all. It's just if you as parents want to do NCSA and pay for their service, go right ahead. I don't think you're getting what you're paying for. I don't think you're getting much in return. So I don't promote it. It's not something that I would ever recommend. If it's something you feel like you need to do, by all means do it. But I did pull some statistics off of their website just to have a basis of kind of what it looks like, how many scholarships are out there. So on their website, Division I AA schools, there's 120 FBS schools in the country. Each one of those schools gets 85 scholarships, and those are full ride scholarships. That's the only level where they cannot cut those scholarships up. So 85 scholarships goes to 85 different people. It's not necessarily the case on the rest of the levels below that. But for Division I single A, so FBS, they have 120 schools, 85 scholarships per school. Division I AA, there are 118 schools, roughly, in the country, and each team gets 63. So if you notice, there's roughly 20 scholarship difference there. So what these schools do is they split these scholarships up. They may give 75% to one kid, 25% to another. Some kids may get a full athletic scholarship, but a lot of them, those scholarships are going to get cut up so they can get more players. And what they do when they cut those scholarships up, they try and stack academic money on top of it. So that's why that GPA, the good grades, is such a key thing once you get past Division I FBS. Then we move on down to Division II. Division II, there's 157 schools, and each one of those schools only gets 36 total scholarships. So they're really looking to cut those scholarships up. We have a player that is at Lindenwood, and his scholarship money got zeroed out, but it wasn't all athletic scholarship. He had good grades, so they were able to stack academic money on top of athletic money, which got him a full ride. But his full ride isn't all football. So there's requirements there that he has to maintain a certain amount of good grades and everything else. But if he wouldn't have had those grades, he wouldn't have had a full ride scholarship. And then NAIA's kind of have their own rules. On the website, it said that NAIA, they have 91 schools and 24 scholarships per school. But they can really move stuff around and offer all kinds of different scholarships at the NAIA level. And then JUCO, there's about 69 schools in the country. And they also have 85 scholarships per team. And that varies per school. So if the school only wants to, you only get 70 or 60 or whatever, they can change how many of those scholarships get. So you're looking at a lot of situations where they're cutting up scholarships, not giving out full rides, or if it is a full ride, it's academic money on top of athletic money. So really, when you see kids that get a full ride, all football, there's really only 10,000 of those in the entire country that are full ride, just purely based off of football alone. Only 10,000 of those, which is crazy to think about.
It's not very many.
No. also on NCSA's website, they said that there are roughly 1,109,278 high school football players, and only roughly 14,000 or 10,200 of those will get a Division I full ride scholarship, which is and I don't want to what'd you say? 1%. And the goal of this isn't to deter anyone from their dream at all. But it's we need to look at numbers and what's realistically what the numbers that are out there. We should shoot for the sky and have our dreams and push towards those.
As another frame of reference, I think about I've coached here 4 years, and I think on average we might see 2 or 3 D1 players on our schedule every season. I think last year we had 4 or 5.
Yeah.
The 2 kids from Washington. I think there were 2 from Francis Howell. I guess we didn't play Howell, did we? Yeah. It's
We watched them.
one thing we try to stress to our guys is that I think a lot of the guys think that they're D1 or that D1 is within their reach, and we don't want to discourage guys, but we also want to give them realistic pictures of what options they have. And our guys don't understand how elite D1 football players are from a size, strength perspective, an athleticism perspective. You're talking about the top of the top of the top.
Well, and I always tell guys it's kind of like a sliding scale. So once they look at GPA, and honestly, sometimes they might even look at how tall someone is first before they look at GPA. If the taller and bigger you are, the slower you can be. But even then, you're talking a couple tenths in a 40. But the shorter you are, the faster you got to be if Division I. If they're looking at you for Division I, and unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. I wish it wasn't that way. When I was in high school, I wished it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
I wasn't I wanted to play college football myself, and I was a very good high school player because I worked hard and I had a mindset that allowed me to be a good high school player. But the facts of it is I was a 5'9" linebacker that couldn't run a sub 540. Well, it didn't matter how many tackles I had. They just weren't. Schools didn't look at me. So unfortunately, height is a big factor.
Oh, yeah.
Height and speed is a huge factor in what they look at.
In our last podcast, when we were talking about attitude and effort, we were emphasizing how important it is to focus on the things that we can control, and how tall you are, and like your genetics are things you cannot control. And that's why when a lot of guys will come in as freshmen and they'll say, my goal is to be D1. And we don't discourage that, but we also try to redirect into saying, well, how about we set some goals that are rooted in things that we can control? Because whether you grow to be 5'9" or 6'1" is totally out of your control. And if your goal is something that you have no control over, then over time you're going to get discouraged, and you're not going to achieve what you set out to do. So we try to, in a way that's gentle and supportive, try to get our guys thinking about things that they can control, because it's entirely realistic that if you put in 4 years of work in the classroom and on the field, you can get a scholarship to play football at the next level. But if you go in with just the mindset that anything less than D1 is failure, you're setting yourself up for a really rough.
There's a lot of players out there that would be failing every year.
That's correct.
Because there's only 14,000 total Division I players out there, and only 10,200 scholarships. So do the math there. There's guys out there that are on Division I, and even if you get a preferred walk-on for Division I, that's awesome. They just didn't have the scholarship for you, or you're right on that bubble. But there's a lot of failure out there if that's your only thing is Division I.
That's correct.
And we're not saying either that you can't be 5'9" and make it to a
right.
Division I school. We're not saying you can't do that, but that's going to take some elite work ethic. That's gonna take a whole other mindset to make it to that level, and it can be done. It just gets harder and harder because they're looking at height. You could be a phenomenal high school player at 5'9", be all state, and Division I schools won't even look at you. You can be an average high school player and you're 6'5", they're going to take a peek. That 6'5" number really piques their interest. Or if you run a 4.440, you weren't a very good high school player, but you're very fast, they're going to look at you over the kid that was an extremely good high school player but doesn't have those special attributes that we're talking about. Kind of one more thing to add on to all of this stuff about requirements and everything else is what we do kind of on our end and what players can do on their end to get themselves noticed in the recruiting process. So what players can do, go to camps. They can go to the mega camps where there's lots of schools there to get noticed. They can go to individual schools that have camps for kids that gets you in front of college coaches. The best camps are the ones that are usually they're under $100 and they're one day. They're not going to be multiple days because those college coaches don't want to take athletes away from what they're doing for their high school football team. So a lot of times during the evening, they might be on the weekends. But anything that's $200-$300 won't necessarily be something that's great for recruitment. Mizzou years ago used to have a camp. It was $300 or something like that. You would stay over the night there. There was a camp. You got free tickets out of it. So I wouldn't say that would be great for recruiting, but I would say for the experience, you get free tickets. And I think those tickets included like a meal or something before games. So the experience, great, go if you want the experience. But as far as recruiting, that probably wasn't the best camp to get recruited at. But some of these camps where they're a couple hours in the evening, less than $100, and they're usually fairly cheap. They're like $60, $50, sometimes even $30, because they have to charge something, and it's allowing these schools, players to come to them and then recruit them and see what they can do on the field. So that's something players can do. What we do on our end is there's a couple times a year where college coaches get out on the recruiting trail and get into high schools to talk to coaches about the players we have. It's usually towards the end of their season, like right before Christmas break. We'll have coaches come, and usually right after Christmas break we might have some. And some days we might have 3 to 4 college coaches a day, or it might be 3 to 4 a week. It just depends. Sometimes they let me know when they're coming by. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they might just pop in. And then usually after their spring season, there's another couple weeks where the recruiting is heavy, where college coaches are coming to Liberty to talk to me but sometimes about specific players that we have. Sometimes it's not about specific players. Sometimes they want to talk to me about the guys I have on our recruiting sheet that want to play at the next level. Most of the time when they're coming through, they want to look at potential seniors, because that's really a part of it we didn't talk about it much either, is outside of Division I football, really the recruiting process doesn't start until the very end of their junior year into their senior year. A lot of these schools, if it's Division II, NAIA, even I would say some Division I AA schools, they want to see senior year film before they do anything. Because everyone sees the junior out there, the sophomore that's getting scholarship offers. Well, those are few and far between. That's the exception, not the rule. Most recruiting happens senior year. I've had multiple coaches say, we just need to see what they do their senior year. So some other things we do. So we do that, and that's really the college coaches coming to us. I sit down with them and we talk through players, their strengths, their weaknesses, their home life, what they need to work on, things they're really good at, They look at their grades. Something else we do is we go to a couple recruiting nights a year. There's a recruiting night in December, and then there's another one in May. And the one we're going to in May is actually next Monday on May 15th. And the best way I can describe it is speed dating for coaches. Us as high school coaches, we sit at tables, and it's free for us. College coaches have to pay. And we sit there at tables, and college coaches come around and sit down with us and talk to us about all the players we have. So that's a great way that we get a lot of kids' names out to college coaches. The one in December, they moved, for some reason this year, they moved it to a Saturday. So there were a lot of, I couldn't go, and there were a lot of high school coaches that could not go. So I'm hoping that next year they move it back to during the week. It's just much better during the week. Like next week, it's on Monday, which is much better. So that's kind of what we do on our end. Players that want to play at the next level need to work on that highlight film. Put their best plays first. Don't put them in chronological order. A college coach is going to look at maybe 30 seconds of that video and either continue watching for maybe 30 more seconds or just pass it on to the coach on their staff that then needs to approve that player. But they're not going to watch all 2 minutes of it. It's just not feasible. If you think about all the players out there that want to play at the next level, how many players are sending their film to them, how many coaches are sending their film. They can't sit there and watch a 5-minute video on every single kid. There's not enough time in a day or in a year to be able to watch all that. So they're going to look at 10 to 30 seconds of it and judge off of that whether it's someone they want to pursue, and then move on from there. So work on those highlight films, and that in camps is probably the best thing those players can do. And players, don't get discouraged, and parents either, if you're sending emails out or was it you DM somebody on Twitter? Is that right? Okay. Yeah. If they don't get back to you, because again, think about how many kids are reaching out to that college coach, how many parents are reaching out to that college coach. We had a player. He was in our first graduating class. He ended up committing to Central Michigan, and again, it's another to me proof that it doesn't matter where a kid plays, what level of competition they play at. You can play anywhere. We were a Class 3. I guess technically we were Class 4 that year, but we were playing teams like Cuba, Northwest Transportation. We didn't have the greatest schedule, and Central Michigan found this kid at Division I school, and he went and played, got a full ride scholarship to play Division I football. But I emailed his video and his statistics out to as many Division II, Division I AA schools that I could find within the surrounding area of Missouri, and I didn't hear back from anybody. But they're getting constantly bombarded with emails and DMs, and so if you don't hear back from a college coach, don't take it personal. They have a monstrous undertaking that they're dealing with in the recruiting process, with how many kids they're looking at, and the transfer portal has added it's a whole new beast now with the transfer portal. So I hope this podcast was beneficial to everybody. Again, listen, if you have questions, please submit those questions to the coach's office, and that's coaches, COACHES, the coach's office podcast @gmail.com. This is the coach's office. Thank you for listening.